Hi everyone, welcome to the MEC podcast series. My name is Nainika, I'm your host and the MEC Enterprise Assistant. Today's episode title is From MEC to Forbes 30 Under 30. And we have with us Sid Sethi, CEO and founder of Specscart, and someone who's just very recently been named on the Forbes 30 Under 30 Europe 2024 list. So Sid, hi.
Hi Nainika.
Can you just tell us a bit about yourself and your background?
Well, first of all, thank you for the introduction and thank you for having me in this podcast series. I really wish this a success. Well, if I'll talk about my journey, it's completely linked with MEC and Lions Manchester Business School. And if I'll tell you from where I started, this will take me all the way to nostalgia and I'll go back in those times when I was a student. So I remember I used to stay just around the road in this accommodation, which is just opposite business school. And what happened? 3 days before my corporate accounting exam, this was second semester, January time, and I broke my last pair of glasses. So now I'm blind as a bat, so I can't see anything without my glasses. So I thought, what do I do? Should I tape them up? Should I glue them up? I just thought that because it's an exam, so I should buy a new pair of glasses. So, just like anybody would do, you hopped on the magic bus thinking that you're going to the city centre, and I went to the city centre in Manchester and went to all these big name opticians, just like any student would do. You don't know much about it. So what I found out over there was that first of all, when I entered the optical showroom or the eyewear showroom, it all felt like as if I'm entering a GP surgery or a hospital. So everything was locked behind rails. So if I wanted to try something on, I'd have to call the sales assistant. She'd open a rack. Then if I'd want to try something else, then I'll ask, can I try this one? Then she'll open the other rack. And I had a friend of mine as well, and he did not needed glasses, but he didn't even bother to try it on because that's how it was laid out. The second thing was when I asked them the price, because in the end of the day, it's a necessity. So an average pair of glasses was costing about 180 to 250 pounds.
Oh my God.
Now, and this is going back to 16, 17. That time, iPhone 6 used to cost 400, 500 pounds. If I'll go for a designer pair, it'll cost me 600, 700 pounds. So it was way too expensive as a student. Now I thought, what do I do? Now back then, pay later didn't exist. So I thought I'll pay it on my credit card. I paid off slowly. So I ended up buying that 180 pound pair of glasses. And I said, when will I get them? And she said, oh, you'll get them in 3 to 4 weeks' time.
Oh.
So I thought, wait a minute.
You have an exam.
I have my exam 3 days later. So I ended up gluing my glasses and giving my exam. Luckily, I passed. But on the way back that day, I just kept on thinking about all these things. So, just like the first problem, that glasses were locked behind rails. To me, it was bad user experience. Because let's say we go to Zara or H&M, or let's say JD Sports or any other, retail store, you're able to pick up anything from the shelves and try it on. But glasses were locked behind rails as if they were jewelry. So I thought, this is not right. And then the prices being so expensive, then the delivery time. So I just kept on thinking, what can I do about this industry? Like if I had run it, how would I do it differently? And bingo, then the idea of Specscart came in. I also dig deeper in the industry about it, that this something must be a problem, that this is probably the reason why this industry is going this way. And I found out that one company owns the entire optical industry, nearly 70 or 80% of it. So I also thought that, when there is a high monopoly, then there is less innovation. So let's say if Pepsi wouldn't be there, then Coke might not bring out Fanta or the other way around, because competition pushes an industry to move forward. So, and this was also the reason that the prices were being controlled end to end by this player. So then I thought I'll do something about it. And I thought this is probably the reason that though glasses being our most intimate fashion accessory, they sit right on our faces. That is probably the reason that it's limited to 1 or 2 and it hasn't got a place in our wardrobes. So all these different thoughts were coming out in my head that time on the way back. And then I thought I'll do something about it, and I wanted to change the way people think about glasses and change the industry, and boom, Specscart was born.
That's amazing. And I think that's also like one of the, all those skills that you just talked about, like observing the problem and then trying to come up with a solution. That's exactly what entrepreneurs are all about, I think, right? I have some friends, they have like family businesses, so they're already born in that like entrepreneurial world. Some people like yourself, you see a problem and then you want to come up with a solution, and that makes you entrepreneurial. But were there any other instances or like events that happen that made you entrepreneurial?
There are a couple of stories. No, I wouldn't say that one particular story that led this to happen, because back home, I was born in Faridabad, which is next to Delhi. It's a small town. And my dad's a contractor. So he builds houses. So nothing related to eyewear, e-commerce or technology. So we can say that possibly there is something from that DNA of contractorship, you can say, though it's not related, but still he used to manage people. And, you know, when someone's building buildings, and I used to go to construction sites when I was a child, and I used to see him plan the entire work. What, you know, if you're building this wall, where do we start? What's going to be the foundation? So maybe I think that has been somewhere in the DNA, if I think back. But there have been a couple of scenarios that led to this. Though this incident happened and I kept on researching more about optical industry, it wasn't firm that I'll start a company, because, you know, it's risky and you need capital and all those things. But I'm going to share some personal instances with you, and I don't think I've shared this before. I used to work part-time in a company, a menswear suits brand, and I used to be a pickpacker in the warehouse. This is whilst I was studying in the university. And what I used to pack in the warehouse, iron suits. So it was not a very high skill job, considering I was doing masters in international business. But even then, you know, I had some experience of how e-commerce orders are packed, how to control stock. I did part-time over there for 3 months. Then I was promoted in the office. I became the operations assistant, and then I was used to manage stock, manage some ordering of China, manage a little bit of e-commerce. So I was gaining that skill slowly and steadily. But something happened at workplace, and I think that really pushed the button on me for, you know, starting Specscart.
Okay.
And I've not said this before, so this is the first time I'm going to be telling this anywhere.
We're very privileged. Thank you.
So I remember what happened. I was sitting in my office, and the owner, or one of the owners, came in and they wanted me. They said, "Oh, we need a USB drive." I said, "Wait a minute, I'll quickly go on Amazon and order it," because I used to be in the office, and, you know, because I was a student, I had Prime. So I placed the order, and I was placing the order, and they said, "Oh no, use the company card." So it was a big business. It's not a small business. I said, no, I'll just place an order. It was £6-7, and, you know, I've been working over there for 3-4 months, and I liked it. And I placed the order. They insisted, no, use the company card. And then I went on my dinner break. So when I was coming back, I saw, I think, one of the owner's daughter sitting on my system, and she said that he'll now use your card to shop on Amazon for personal use. And that time I was just boom, devastated. So, you know, I went outside and I was nearly in tears. I was like, why I'm working so hard? You know, I'm trying to manage operations, trying to put in my everything. I've got this good job. Why would they not trust me? And then I also found a problem in company culture. The idea of Specscart was already bugging in my head. I have to do something about it. I have to do something about it. So this opportunity came in for Tier 1 entrepreneur visa. So I left my job, I resigned, and I had to go back to India because my visa was expiring. So I went to Professor Martin Henry's office, and he didn't see me. I went there for 3-4 days outside his office. I said, give me a try. I have this great idea. So I submitted my idea after all these instances. One was, I'll do something about the eyewear industry. Second thing was to build a company where people in a business are a part of the business and they're trusted to make decisions, and you're not unnecessarily doubting upon them.
I love that.
So when I went back home, I formulated this whole idea. I sent it to Professor Martin Henry. My idea was shortlisted. Again, for a brief period of 3 months, I was working with my father again on construction sites, but somehow it wasn't my passion. It was always, it was in a B2C product, and this problem that happened kept on bugging that I'll do something about it. And by this time I researched so much about the eyewear industry that I found out more problems. So then my idea was selected, and I was called for a tier 1 entrepreneur pitch. I flied over to give the pitch. I didn't do it on Skype. Zoom and Google Meet didn't exist that time. So I gave my pitch, and finally I got the tier 1 visa, and Specscart was formulated. So we can say that multiple instances. One, the exam incident, when I found the problem. Second was some DNA from my father because of planning the work on a construction site. Third thing was you can say some experience in warehouse, stock management, a bit of e-commerce, and then an incident at the job that made me push towards going in the deep end and starting my business.
I think that's very interesting because it also shows how you don't just go into entrepreneurship like that. You can do a lot of things, gain experiences from those things, and then that builds into your entrepreneurial career. That's very good. So when I was first speaking to you about this, you said that you would like me to do my research and then come up with my questions for you. So I did a bit of digging up, and then I saw an article on Bury Times about yourself and Specscart, and from there I got to know that when you first opened your shop in Walkden, you received a lot of support from the Manchester business community and the other retailers there. So can you tell me and our audience here a bit more about that experience?
Right, I'd say that I owe so much to Manchester because all these instances happened, and I think it got me where I am today. So the first shop was opened in Walkden Town Centre, which is in Manchester, and there was an awards in the university after I got tier 1 entrepreneur visa. You do get an incubator, but my business was in e-commerce, so I had to get stock. I can't stock frames and everything in a small room, so I ordered stock, and it was coming from China, and I ordered stock, and it was from raw materials were coming from somewhere from East Asia, someone from Italy, and I had to stock them in my apartment. It was a tiny little apartment because it was still bigger than the incubator. So came across these awards called the Albert Gube Awards, 2017, and at this point of time, it was just an idea. I was just forming a company. There was no website, nothing. So I applied for these awards. The prize of this award was that I'll get a rent-free shop for 2 years in Walkden Town Centre with bills paid, and I'll get £5,000 cash injection.
Oh my God.
So though I needed to get stock even in my apartment, I didn't have savings. Even from my last job, I probably would have saved £600. That's all I had. So I applied for these awards. I pitched in, and I still remember the judge was Dr. Lynn Shepard and
oh my God,
Peter Hebelett from Albert Gube Foundation. And when I was preparing for this pitch, I thought I'll show them how my store would look like. It will be different than all the optical stores. It will be an eyewear store, so it'll be a different domain. I pitched in the idea. I won the award, and in October 2017, we got that small little shop in Walkden Town Centre. So you can say that is also, Manchester supporting us, either MEC or business school, or let's say Peter Hebelett, who was from Albert Gube Foundation. And Albert Gube was the person who founded Total Fitness Quick Saves. So after he passed away, these awards were conducted in Manchester to support entrepreneurs. So there you go, support from Manchester.
That's amazing.
Another thing that I'll add on to it, which happened, the idea was never to open a retail store. It was always to go in e-commerce, but because this award came in, we got the retail store, so we thought we might as well try. And I remember I opened that shop, and it wasn't a busy shopping center. It was quiet. And I think on the second day, I was feeling really low. I was like, how will I survive now? All the money that I got has been spent in the shop, in the stock. How do I sell? The website would take another 3 months to, get live. But I thought, okay, no, I have an office. Now, what changed over there, second or third day, a very elderly lady, she was passing by the shop with her small pram, after probably doing her shopping, groceries, and she came into the store, and she said, can I have some leaflets? So I said, here you go. I gave her a leaflet. She says, no, I want more. I gave her 2 more leaflets. She says, no, I want more. So I showed her all the leaflets, and she picked a bunch. So I said, do you mind me asking, what will you do with all of them? And she said, you're a new business and in the area, so when I'm going home, I'll drop it to the neighbors to support you.
That's amazing.
And when I think about it, and I go back in time, that was the moment when I thought, no, we we will still remain in retail because it helps us connect with customers face to face. And again, this is what Manchester is all about. This is where would you see the community
Oh my
supporting
God.
a business so much?
That's, yeah.
So I'll have loads of instances like these, meetup events and other things. But there has been incredible support from the community, Manchester, and I think I owe a lot to the city.
That's amazing. I got goosebumps when you told this story. Sometimes help and support comes from unexpected people and unexpected places, and it's very good to hear that Manchester has that community where it's not just organizations helping businesses, universities, it's individual people helping businesses. It's so good to hear about that. So now the University of Manchester and we here at MEC, we are also a big part of that Manchester community. So could you share with us your experience about participating in and winning our staple Venture Further competition?
Yeah, again, I think that's a big one. If I'd show you my phone, my wallpaper is still the 2018 win, and with me standing next to Professor Martin Henry. So that's how much that means to me. But I'll tell you the whole story of Venture Further. So I applied in 2017 after before winning the Albert Goober Awards, in fact. And because it was just an idea and everything, I put in every single thing in my pitch. And I did not get it. So I failed, even the first round. So then the next year, by this time, I just launched the website in February 2018, specscart.co.uk. It was an MVP, not fully fledged, but still, it was live. And I was literally running out of any funding for myself, because though I had the retail store, but it was in a quiet area. So the sales of the shop, I still remember, was £523, but my flat's rent was more than that for a month. So I was like, now I have to expand the business. I need more cash. What do I do? I was stuck. So I started door to door. I started wholesaling. So I used to go to independent opticians to their shops and open that. And I was getting hard work because all day I was, roaming around the country, doing door to door selling just so that I have money to pay the bills. And nighttime I used to make the website. And then when Venture Further 2018 came along, I thought, no, I can't do this because I'm not able to focus on my e-commerce, which is my baby, I'm not able to focus on Specscart. So I really, really needed that award that time, and I put in everything into it, with all my passion, everything in my pitch, whatever I've learned in the slide deck, I submitted it. Then I was shortlisted. I also incorporated the feedback that I got last time, so that was really important. And then I remember I came here, gave the pitch, and I was like, oh, I've done really well. And one of my mentors, I think you know him, Professor Paul Argyle, he was coming out of, after I've done the pitch, they do a little bit of video for you, and then he was coming out. So I said, Professor, how did I do? He said, it was all right. So I was like, okay, I will not get it now. What do I do? And then next, coming to fast forward to the award ceremony day, I got an email from Professor Martin Henry, regular catch-up, because MEC used to mentor me as a startup visa scheme. So I said, Professor, tonight is the Venture Further Awards night. What do you think will happen? He says, no, you didn't do really well. You were too overconfident and everything. So I went back really upset. That I've lost it now. Where will I get the funds? On one side, funding is too tight. Everything, I'm not able to focus on the main part of e-commerce. And then came into the awards thinking that, I will not have it. And then all of a sudden they announced, and the winner is Specscart.
Oh my God, that's amazing.
I can't tell you that feeling. I remember my mom was also on the phone on loudspeaker that time, listening from India. So again, one of the best nights I'd say of my life has been winning Venture Further Awards 2018. And I've seen a lot of times people saying that, no, it's not a lot of money, but that £10,000 helped us buy our first eye test machines, because though we had the stores, we didn't have money to buy the eye test machines. And those eye test machines then came in, which generated more revenue for me to build the website. And slowly and steadily, we are here where we are. So it does plays a very, very important role if you use those funds correctly.
That's amazing. That's really good. And my next question actually was going to be, how did this win tie in with your Specscart journey from, when you got the shop and it was a bit down, you were doing like door-to-door sales, and I think you've beautifully like already answered the question, which is very good. So now I have a bit, I think, of a personal question about yourself. So a lot of times people, when they win competitions, they get support from people, they are very grateful, they tend to move on with life and go on to do very great things, but you've like managed to keep a very good relationship, be it with the university in general or just the Entrepreneurship Centre. So I want to ask you, like personally, what kept you so grounded that you've kind of like nurtured this beautiful relationship, I'll say, that you have with the university and with the Entrepreneurship Centre as well?
I owe so much to the business school and to the university, to MEC, and I don't think that anybody should forget their roots, from enabling me to get the startup visa to then mentoring me. How can I, not be grounded with having a story like this where I've worked hard and I've been mentored by MEC unconditionally? What does MEC wants in return for this mentorship? For you to be successful. So the least I could do is, give back something to the next generation who's going to take part and things like that. So, and I think as an entrepreneur yourself, you always have to think that you're working for a mission, and though the business is growing, but that doesn't mean you forget your roots and from where you started. So I think that's just has been within me. In the end, I'm here because I am because of teachings of MEC, because of our customers who have trusted us, because of teachings of my family, because of the biggest hard work and support of my team. So I'm never distant from them. I'm still a part of the same thing, and I'm glad that MEC also gives me an opportunity to be a part, because entrepreneurship is a lonely journey, and sometimes still bouncing off ideas, still asking for help. Even now and again, sometimes I email that, can I get some mentorship? And the doors are always open. So it's I'm so blessed to be a part of, to receive this support. And I do not take this for granted at all.
That is beautiful. Thank you. Thank you so much for that. Now I think onto some exciting stuff. So I mentioned in the beginning of this episode that you were recently recognized on the Forbes 30 Under 30 Europe 2024 list. So what does this recognition mean for you and Specscart? And what was your reaction when you got to know about it? Just tell us everything about that.
Nainika, when you're starting up a business, you always have some dreams. I want to achieve this. I want to take the business at this level. And I remember that time when I was studying in the university, Forbes 30 Under 30 used to be a big thing.
I think it still is. It still is a big thing.
Yeah, it has always been, because you look up to that and you think, oh, that's like a dream. So even when I was starting, I was like, maybe one day I'll grow the business so fast before I turn 30, and maybe one day I'll be on that list. And the dream was always there. I've just kept on working towards it. And I remember that this year, I've turned 29. So this was my last year I could, get featured on that list. And I thought, but I thought, I've worked hard enough. And I remember I was nominated by a lot of people for Forbes 30 Under 30, including MEC as well, some people in MEC. So they reached out to me 3 days after my wedding, and this February. And I was, whilst I should be going on honeymoon, I asked my wife and our head of marketing and communications, we need to submit this. I was there in the office till 3 in the morning, finishing the application, submitted it. And again, coming towards the announcement date, there were again some days which were down. As an entrepreneur, you have ups and downs.
Definitely.
And when this announcement was made, and I got calls 4 a.m. in the morning from my mother, from my wife, from my colleagues, we've been on Forbes 30 Under 30. So it was so much needed, because it was a validation for me, that I'm still going in the right direction, that I'm still taking the Specscart in the right direction, that I still deserve to be the CEO of Specscart. So I can't, again, one of the biggest things for this year, and I'm just so proud of my team, and like, I think we will not stop from over here. I'm so happy that I got on this list. It means so much to me.
That's amazing. Congratulations
Thank
once
you.
again, by the way. And now, if I may say that for our aspiring entrepreneurs, you are going to be that like dream, that reference for the like upcoming generation of entrepreneurs from the University of Manchester. They'll be like, I want to be like Sid.
No, I think, I always used to, and of course I can, one can watch the journey. Of course, I also take inspiration from a lot of people. But this is something which my dad told me. I said, Dad, one day I'll be like this person. He says, no, one day you will be Sid Sethi. So again, I'd say take inspiration from other people's story, but make your own name in your own field and create a distinct approach, because all of us have got something unique in us. And that's what makes us, makes us all very special. So again, of course, they can take inspiration, and I'm there to support the next generation. But I think they'll even surpass me. So who knows, and I'll keep on working hard. I'll keep on working hard. So I'm not stopping over here. And hopefully I'll have more to show them in the next 3 years' time, where there is more to take inspiration from.
I love that. I absolutely love that. So now I think I want to talk a bit about something that's a bit technical about your business. And that is, a lot of times we have entrepreneurs, people who like to come up with solutions to things and innovate things. They don't really do like a market research or validation before just bringing out the product on the market. And we then see like startups failing because of that. And I really like Specscart formula, which I saw, I think, in one of the articles I was reading again, which says never ever sell something to a customer that you would not buy for yourself. And I think this formula really encapsulates how customer-centric Specscart is. So was this something that you started off with in the first place, or was this something that like later on was developed in the journey?
No, I think it was there in the very beginning, because again, you think about it, you're creating a company, and out of that you have to generate value. So you want your product to be the very best. Again, why would you sell something to someone that you wouldn't buy yourself? So that's the basic thing that, basic principle that I think should be considered when you're creating a product or service. And when you talk about market research, I think that's very, very important, because a lot of times people enter into an industry unprepared, just thinking, this restaurant's doing good, I'll open a restaurant. But that's not, there are a lot of ins and outs. You can't start something without preparation, think about, even if you go to basics, like let's say tonight you'll prepare a dinner, you'll have to get the groceries, you'll have to get the ingredients, you'll know how to make that dish. So similarly, going on a bigger scale, you're making a company, you're creating a product, you need to know what's the ingredient, you need to know what's the recipe, what to make it successful. And that's what market research is all about. In my case, all these problems happened with me. Then I figured out, okay, now I want to change people's perception about glasses. How do I do that? Problem one, user experience was bad. So we launched Try at Home. So at Specscart, you can go and try 4 frames, and they'll be delivered to you for free of charge, and you can try them on at home and return them. If you like something, you can buy. If you don't like something, when you return, you can do another trial, right? So that's, to change that side of the user experience, we did that for our online customers. For in-store customers, glasses are openly displayed in shelves, right? Second problem that I faced was for the pricing. So when I dig deeper in the industry, like I was offered products for £180. I even found some online websites which were selling glasses for £15, which were, and I was like, but when you go towards the checkout, they'll add up to £50 and with the lenses, and then they'll add up delivery, and their starting price, they'll show us £15 will turn 55. And then their closing price will be 400 odd pounds. Now you think that, if you buy, let's say, jeans from Zara, an average Zara shopper would know how much the next pair of jeans would cost. So I found out that this is another problem. And this came in through digging deeper about this industry, that pricing is not just expensive, it's inconsistent. Then the third thing, which was delivery time. A lot of companies, they said 3 to 4 weeks. Now I can say that's a problem. But when I did market research, I found out that majority of the companies drop ship their glasses from overseas. So they don't produce it over here. That's why there are long lead times. And now at Specscart, we produce our glasses in Manchester, delivered to you, lightning speed, 24 hours, Monday to Sunday. So again, for each and every single problem, I did my research and I developed a solution. So try at home, free try at home, pricing by connecting via the direct producers connecting to the customers, and Specscart Rocket, which is our 24-hour dispatch service. So all these things are formulated because of market research. We were able to create these solutions for our customers to achieve our goal.
That's amazing. It's indeed, I think, one of the most important things to do when launching any kind of like venture. So with that, I just want to let everyone know that here at MEC, we do have the Kickstarter Awards, which runs on a monthly basis. It's not a competition, it's just an open award that students who have a business idea can apply to, and then they will get up to £2,000 to do market validation for that business idea. So do check out our website, send us an email if you're interested in that. So that was for the audience. Now we are nearing towards the end of our podcast.
Before that, I want to say, so these awards, Kickstarter awards, they're happening every month?
Every month, yeah.
Wow. See, again, MEC always blows me away every time I visit you. So that means you're nearly giving away £24,000 a year to students to start. See, this is an amazing initiative, and I think I'd also tell your audience, do apply for these awards. It doesn't matter if you fail in January, apply it in February again.
Exactly.
If you fail in February, apply it in March.
Exactly.
So keep on applying till you get it.
Definitely. So now, do you have any upcoming projects or initiatives that you're excited about? This can be like personal or professional, whatever, like anything exciting you're very looking forward to.
See, if you'll ask me about personal, everything is Specscart right now. So that's the journey of entrepreneurship, right? There is, everything is this dream that I'm working for. So right now, the biggest project we're working on is Specscart 2.0. So we are launching a headless platform, a new website, which is completely custom built. We are trying to build world's fastest eyewear e-commerce website. Again, doing our market research, understanding the load times, understanding the overall customer journey, that how do we, because at Specscart you get free anti-glare, anti-scratch, anti-UV lenses are free. So the checkout process is simple, but how do we make it even more simple in the new platform? So our 2.0 website should release, again, by the time this podcast releases, so it should be live as well. And I think it will change the way people shop glasses online. It'll just be a whole new different experience for customers. And again, this project is being launched first of all in the UK, so because where we started from. And if it's successful, then we are also planning to launch Specscart USA and Specscart Canada later this year. So my entire time right now is being dedicated to this. So I'm extremely time poor, but I'm loving working on this project because I think we will change the way people shop glasses online. It'll be fantastic. Amazing prices and great experience.
It sounds very exciting, and all the best for that. I'm sure it's going to be like very good. Don't have any doubts about that. So now, as again, we're nearing towards the end, just have like a few questions about some reflection on your journey. So a lot of times people do not start things like businesses, ventures. They like stop at the ideation stage because they have this fear of failure. They're like, what if I like invest this much in this and then it ends up failing or something like that? So what are some mistakes that you think you might have made along the way that you learned from, or if there's anything you would like to change, you would do differently about this journey? Just like reflection basically on your journey.
I think in business, you're constantly learning because, again, that's the whole journey about. So nobody can do everything in the correct way. So we'll all have a fear of starting business because it's the fear of unknown, right? I don't know how to start a company. It's a limited company, sole trader, partnership. What do I do? But then you take guidance, you take mentorship, and then you figure out. So, of course, it's a scary ride. But if you go all in, and you do your research, I think you can figure out what to do. Of course, I have made mistakes in the past in the business journey. All of us do. Say, for example, there was one time we had an inspection on site when we applied for the NHS contract, and I wasn't as prepared. So first time I failed. Next time I got it because I did more preparation. Another lesson that I have learned is uh, your team is your biggest asset, because when you go to work in the morning, you want to be excited about it, and you can be excited about it if all of the people buy into the vision. So what I learned is hire slowly. So again, you have to be very sure who you bring on in your team, because you have to be very selective. You have to make sure that you gather the right army to win the war, of in your industry. I know it doesn't, the words don't sound right, but in business, when you're trying to win, and become the best in the industry, it's like Euros going right now. So you need the best squad. So hire really, really slowly. That's what I've learned, and I keep following that. So yeah,
that's amazing. And now on to our closing question. What advice would you give to students who are watching us right now, who are aspiring entrepreneurs as well?
I think I'll give it to the students, and I give it to myself also, because it's something that I still don't do it as often. It's to constantly read books, business books. They are one of the biggest assets that we have. All the information that we need is out there. The solutions to problems that we seek is out there, because people with greater wisdom have already written those books and those solutions. So it's our responsibility to constantly learn, constantly improve, and constantly make sure that that we are educating ourselves. So for example, for me, I have to constantly learn and improve the new technology which is coming out, such as AI. I have to read about that. I have to adapt that to the business model, because that's my job. So constantly learn, constantly keep on upgrading your skill set, so that you're at par with the industry. Like if I want Specscart to be the rank 1 company in my industry, then I also have to become the rank 1 CEO. So in my industry, so what am I doing to do that? I can't just just go about my day-to-day role. I also have to upskill myself. So read, learn, improve, take mentorship, all those things. Another thing that I'll say to young entrepreneurs is, and I saw this on YouTube, so it's I'm going to quote a video, is that most people only see the final product of a successful entrepreneur, the big office and all these things. What most don't see is the struggles, the rejections, the heartaches, the times when someone has empty bank accounts. The only difference between a successful entrepreneur, between the ones who quit and the ones who don't, is that we show up every day, we work hard every day, we learn from our mentors every day, and we do all this even if we think like quitting every day. So, and eventually we become who we are today. So outside picture can be whatever, but it's going to be a scary ride. But go all in if you've got the right, research behind you. If you fully believe in your idea and go in with the right passion and energy, you will be successful. Just go all in and give your 100%.
Beautiful. I love that. Thank you so much, Sid. And that was it for this episode of the MEC podcast series. We'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.